Hello, everybody. This is Kyrix with another episode of This Week in Kyrix. Today is Tuesday, January 26th of 2021, being recorded for the week of Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. We're going to start off with the unemployment update, because that is the most pressing concern, as it kind of deals with my ability to continue being alive. I still have not heard from unemployment itself, which is distressing to say the least. However, last night I began taking steps, because I looked up some stuff and basically said, hey, contact your representatives and such, and they can speed things along. And I originally looked at the thing and couldn't find any information on email. I was just finding addresses and phone numbers, and I know from experience anything dealing with the phone numbers of a government thing, be it a person or an organization, is just asking for a 5-hour hold session, where I just put it on hold and watch YouTube or some shit. Only to have them suddenly tone in right at the worst possible time, kind of a thing. So I wanted an email, and it only last night occurred to me, and hey, we can't all be brilliant all the time, and ignore that, that's me getting fur off the microphone. So it finally occurred to me last night, hey, why don't I have the list of names, why don't I just look at his personal site? And sure enough, there was a contact form, which I filled out, and got a very prompt response at about, 9:30 this morning. It's now 9:47, like I just got off the phone not that long ago. And, it wasn't my representative. I contacted the Federal House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. representative. And his office called me, and it was a secretary or assistant, and she basically told me, hey, I looked up your thing dealing with your unemployment, and that's dealt with at the state level. We can't really help you, but I can connect you to, basically direct you to go to your state Senate or state representative for Florida itself, and if you need the information, I have it. I'm like, no, I've got the name. I just wanted to start here and, if need be, work down from there. And she's like, okay. I'm like, thank you. So I didn't even have to wait a day. I was prepared to wait till Thursday to get this response, and I got it this fucking morning. So good on him. My roommate actually was telling me that he dealt with this guy back when he was our governor. It's Charlie Crist. And he had to go through his airport, and he was very personable and easy to talk to, and apparently he values feedback. So, good for him, honestly. Wonderful. I am just one step closer to getting this. That's a lot more steps than I had yesterday. So that's taken care of. Mostly what is left is various gaming things. I've done only a little bit of work on Kingdom Hearts. I don't remember if I covered it in the last update. But basically, I'm 4 episodes in right now, and I'm grinded to hell and back. And I just now got around to doing some of the side missions. Like I went to Mirage Arena, or Mirage Coliseum, showed that off very, very briefly. I was tremendously overpowered for it, as I suspected. And I did the command board, which was fun. I actually did two boards of it, one moment. It's basically Fortune Street. And you have no way of knowing this, but I love Fortune Street. So I'm actually looking forward to doing that a lot off-screen. The problem is, as Aqua, who I'm starting with, it serves little to no function for me, because the main function of the command board is to level up your commands. And I've basically maxed out every command I give a shit about right now. So it doesn't serve any purpose except to level up more instances of bind and fire that I'm never going to fucking use. But for Terra and Ven, it'll be awesome because it'll help me grind the shit out of their skills without making them level 50. For reference's sake, I'm 2 maps in. I'm starting my 3rd actual map, and I'm already like 15 levels above what I should be to beat the game. So, yeah. It's just a matter of getting back into it, because I've been in such a grind phase that I'm tempted to just keep grinding even more, and that's not viable, for lack of a better term. It just isn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of all the commands that Aqua can learn, and then I'll do one for Terra and one for Ven, and do the checklist and say, okay, what shit left do I have to learn? And then I'll get those, and then it's game for the rest of the game, you know what I mean? Swinging away from Kingdom Hearts, let's drift over to Star Trek Online, which actually has quite a bit going on right now. First off, I've finally redeemed my experimental upgrade pack. There's a thing called the experimental upgrade where you basically... One moment. Sorry, I had to sneeze. You apply it to a Tier 5 or Tier 6 ship, at least I think. It's those two tiers, and definitely Tier 6, probably 5 as well. And anyway, for the rest of that ship on the rest of your account, and it might be the whole class, like if I do the Legendary Defiant, it might do it for the various others, like the Sao Paulo, the Valiant, and the Defiant itself, you know, I don't know. But what it does is it unlocks like a device slot, it gives you another starship trait, and it does something else. I don't remember what. But I'm probably going to use it on the Defiant just because it's a good ship. I haven't really decided. Now that I have it, I can use it whenever. So that's something from earlier in the year that I completely forgot to do and just redeemed like last night. I keep wanting to think that First Contact Day is coming up, but that's not till April, and that's always a big deal. They always do something for First Contact Day. We have started a new thing for a new event called Synthwave. And it goes into the Jaula arc, which is still unfolding, actually. And I've only glanced at part of the story, because I originally just passed it off as a Discovery thing. So I didn't pay too much attention, and I'm actually kind of lost in parts of it. I'm going to have to play through them to pay attention to it. And in the Jaula arc, you can do like the newest episode instead of doing Synthwave, but the episodes take longer than the task force, if you know what I mean. They just... I love these levels, but they drag on and on and on. And some of them are worse than others. Like some of the new ones, like... I don't know. Some of the new ones feel like they're like 2 or 3 strung together. But then again, some of the old ones that don't really apply anymore, like the Bajoran part of the Dominion arc. Oh, I've already let you out of your cage. Never mind. But like the Bajoran part, just as an example, whoops, no, takes for fucking ever. It just does. Because you got to wander the map and do these stupid little errands. But this particular arc sends you to Narenda? No, not Narenda. I don't remember the place. I want to say it's Narenda. It's the planet. It's the Peace Planet from Star Trek V, where the Klingons, Romulans, and the Federation all had presence. But in reality, it's just this prison world that nobody fucking likes, and they send like their worst people there. You know, it's basically Mos Eisley the planet. But you go there, and it's this big story arc. That actually has an interesting ending to that particular episode. I won't spoil it, because, honestly, it's not that hard to see. The episodes are not level-locked the way they used to be, especially since it's featured. So if you really want to see how it happens, just sign up. The game is free, be it on PC or PlayStation. It's free. Just download it. Make a character, sign in, play it, you're golden. I mean, you could do it this afternoon. You know what I mean? It'll take you maybe all of an hour to get high enough level to get there, and that assumes that you're dragging ass through the tutorial. Actually, no, it takes about 2 hours, but either way. It's an MMO, and considering the time you're likely to sink in it, 2 hours is nothing. So that's going on, and it's actually for something new. Usually these are for something like a starship, most of the time. That's generally what it takes to get me off my ass, is give me a starship of some sort, whether I want it or not. Like, I have two Rysian ships, one's a weather control ship and one's a corvette, that I could give less of a fuck about. Although the Rysian corvette is actually a very nice ship. Probably the most agile ship in my roster, to be honest. The winter arc that just finished was, because every December they do Q's Winter Wonderland, where you just do winter shit, you know, you decorate, you don't decorate, you get various holiday decorations, 6 different kinds that you trade in for shit. You fight snowmen, you fight the Krampus, or the Krampiri, and you race and do all this other shit for about 45 days. And generally, in that 45 days or so, you have 20 days of stuff to do. This time around was a Fakiri ship. Fakiri are basically Klingon demons. There's more to them than that, but again, that's a spoiler, and I'm not going to fuck with it right now. But it was a Fakiri carrier, which is fairly indistinguishable from the Fakiri carrier I unlocked last year, or maybe it was the year before. So I don't know why there's another one, because there's really not much different. I mean, I'm sure if I get down to the specs it's different, but it doesn't even look that different, you know? So I don't know why they did that, but they did that. But yeah, a lot of these times, the main prize is going to be a starship, or maybe it'll be something really big, like a specific kind of armor or weapon. Generally, the add-ons, like the armors, the weapons, the kits, and so on, and consoles, when those are given out, they tend to be part of an arc, which is anywhere from 2 to 4 months, where they'll have one for a month, and then they'll go to the next one, etc., with the grand prize being something like a starship. So, that's cool. And this time around, it's not a ship, and it's not anything like that. It's a set. It is a space equipment set, which means it is shields, impulse engines, deflector shields, or deflector dish, and either a warp core or a singularity, depending on whether you're playing Romulan or not. And when I say either or, it'll probably come with both, and you just use the one you need. You know what I mean? Or maybe it doesn't have that and it's just got the other 3, but I heard it's like a 4-part set. So this is basically going to be a thing that could be level dependent. Like there's a modified energy weapon that can basically cycle through phaser, disruptor, plasma, tetryon, antiproton, etc. You know, it can just cycle like that. That I have that basically matches to your rank, so it'll be like Mark II or Mark IV or whatever. It could be that, but most likely it's gonna be level or infinite level, which means it levels with you. And I do mean with you, like when you gain a level, its stats go up by like a point or 2. But this will basically give me a nice level with me equipment, which granted I have so many tier 6 ships I can just take their leveling equipment off them, but this comes with set bonuses, so it'll do stuff, and it'll be functionally the same as the shields, but it'll have some flavor to it, so that's nice. I'm probably going to use that on my Let's Play starting in the next tier. I think I've got like 8 more days of it before it's done. This is also when I tend to stockpile dilithium, by the way, because the instant you get it, whether you unlock it, whether you buy it with Zen, which is often an option, or you buy it with Lobi crystals, which is often an option. It's either one or the other, and it thing to thing. But once you get it, starting that day, you can play through the mission over and over again to get increasing amounts of dilithium. Like it starts at like 2,500, and then it's 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, etc. It doesn't always double, but it gets pretty high. And it's on the same timer, because when you complete the mission and get your reward, it goes on a 20-hour cooldown. But this basically skips the cooldown for the first one, so you can attempt it again immediately. Get your dilithium, 20-hour cooldown, and just keep doing the daily for the rest of the event to get more dilithium, and this is how I stockpile. And this allows me to get my reputation gear, which the marks aren't too bad. They're grindy, but one of the perks of doing the dailies that I do is they're almost always task force, and whether or not they are task forces, you get the option to get a reward of either fleet marks or reputation marks. So whatever reputation I'm working on, like right now I'm working on Species 8472 reputation, which I've maxed them all out, but I want to get the items, you know. So right now, after each one, I'm doing Species 8472 marks. And when I do that, I'll move on to the next one. Like I just did Dyson earlier, I did Romulan before that, etc. You know, Discovery. No, I did Discovery first, then I did Dyson, and now I'm on 8472. But the marks are part of it, but the big thing is the dilithium and the special item. There's a special item that every set except Romulan reputation has. Like the Borg have these little cortical nodes, these Dominion has these carapaces, etc. I didn't even bother to look at what most of them are. But you have a rare chance of getting them when completing task forces. If you do higher level ones, which I don't know how to do, but if you do higher level ones, you got a better chance of getting them. But you could also, once per day, exchange 100 of them, or 100 marks for one of them. So, and your special items vary between 2 marks and 5 marks. I haven't really seen an in-between. It's either 2 or 5. The lower tier stuff is 2, the higher tier stuff is 5. Lower tier stuff tends to be the weapon sets, which is generally a projectile weapon, a beam weapon of some sort, or an energy weapon, which can be either beams or cannons. The projectiles tend to be torpedoes, but can also be mines, and a console. And then there's the big set, which is 5 each. Tends to include 3 or 4 of these, either a shield, engines, warp drive, deflector. It'll be either 3 or 4 of those. Some are 3 sets, some are 4 sets. And when I say warp drive, obviously there's also the option to get a singularity core instead if you're Romulans again. But anyway, I'm like 6 to 8 days away from that, so that's kind of a thing. I have actually found a way to game the system, because how Synthwave works is you have these concentric circles. Basically, there's this attack on Mars by a group called the Synth. I'm guessing they're from Picard, but I don't know. It could be something original to the game that I just haven't run into yet. I'm guessing it's Picard because they act like I'm supposed to know who the fuck the Synth are. Then again, they could be Discovery. So it's probably either Picard or Discovery, but the Synth are here, you know, they're attacking Mars, and you have to evacuate the planet, and you're getting engineers off the planet. Your ship can hold 3 groups of engineers, and you can decide what to do with them. You could take them to the station, at least towards the end. You could put them on a transport. There are 50 of those. You can put them on a transport, which costs 1 unit, and will fly to the station. You could put them on a frigate, which is a small ship that'll fight alongside you. For 1, there are 10 frigates. No, there are 15 frigates. You could put them on a cruiser, which takes 2 units to man. And by the way, if you do not have the full load, the ship will not do anything, and if it's destroyed, they're gone. Like, it won't even power shields up more than they are or anything. But cruisers take 2 people, and the last option is battle cruisers, or battleships, it varies on what it calls them, with 3 people. And there are 5 of those. So there's 5 battleships, 10 cruisers, 15 frigates, and 50 transports. And then, you know, you get like 2.5 minutes of the first ring. Then that ends, and there's this next yellow ring you got to get inside of. And anything outside that ring, including any ships that you didn't man, or any manned ships that haven't made it in, will be destroyed, and they're just gone. And then you'd start the whole thing over again with a smaller sphere of influence with the remaining ships. And there are ships in each of the rings, by the way. For another 2.5 minutes, then you get to the last thing where it's like, okay, start loading people onto the station, and then you beam people up, beam directly to the station. And then you got to defend the transports, which I've only ever seen like maybe 5 of them ever destroyed across all the rounds I've played of this, so it's not hard. And that's without me really contributing that much even. But then you have like a minute or so of fighting, and then it just ends. But I found a way to game the system, because normally, in almost anything, when you try and do a non-combat action, like there's this one where you have these Borg ships that are trying to, that the collective is trying to reassimilate into them because they're free Borg. You have to basically enter this little, let's call it a scan cycle, to deliver this antivirus to them, and if anything hurts you or puts you into red alert, which red alert is triggered by any kind of damage or offensive ability, like if you fire your weapons, red alert. Actually no, it's not red alert that cancels it. Any kind of damage to you, anything they do to you, will knock you out of it immediately. Likewise, if you're cloaked, doing so will decloak you. Well, the fun thing about this is because the synth are so numerous, they disabled that feature, which means that while you're fighting, you can still be beaming people up. But here's the kicker. I decided, because I do daily endeavors, which basically every day it gives you 3 optional things that it's like, hey, do these things and you'll get special points. You know, you'll get points to increase your characters and you'll get free stuff. Usually it's money and it'll be like you get specialization points, you get money, you get crafting materials, or rarely you'll get marks boxes where you push a button and you get anywhere from 25 to 50 free reputation marks. And it'll be things like, oh, defeat 50 Klingons on the ground, or kill 10 Zenkathi cruisers in space, or deal this kind of damage in space or on the ground. Well, when that happens, I tend to ignore the ground stuff, because ground missions are kind of balls. When I get something like, oh, deal this much phaser damage, I have ships. I have like 15 ships, many of which are specifically set up to do a certain kind of damage for that. And some ships are just certain kinds of way because I use them for certain kinds of missions. My main one is my Kittimer class, the AFS Princess. Basically, that was the first random name it picked. I'm like, oh, I could fly the Princess, so that's what it is. I originally was not that impressed with the design of the Kittimer class, and it was only mildly good to me, until I started speccing it to do anti-proton beams and really putting effort into it. Like, all my weapons are now tier 15 gold epic standard weapons. Like, you can't find those, you have to make them, you know what I mean? So effort was put into this motherfucker, and once I did that, the Princess just became this juggernaut of a ship that has become my standard. Basically, if I don't have an endeavor telling me otherwise, or telling me, or don't have one that tells me to do anti-proton, I will fly the Princess. But this particular day, it's like, oh, do phaser damage. Well, my default for that is my Defiant class ship, the USS Ares, which is just loaded to the brim with photon torpedo, or phasers, and a special kind of photon torpedo that does phaser damage rather than kinetic. It also has a rear torpedo launcher that does normal torpedo damage, but it's really only in there for a set bonus, which I'm probably going to get rid of at some point. But for those who don't realize anything about Star Trek or missed Deep Space Nine, which, hey, it's not for everyone. I love it, but some people hate it. The Defiant is a cloaking vessel, and my particular one has what's called a battle cloak. A battle cloak isn't a thing in the show, it's a mechanic for the game. Standard cloaking device, just henceforth known as a cloak, only works when you're not in red alert. And when you decloak, there's like a minute or 30 second, somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes cooldown. I think it's like 30 seconds. So basically, you pop out a cloak, you get a brief damage bonus, you unleash, then when red alert ends, you can cloak again. Well, the standard Defiant has a cloak. However, the one I'm using, which is the Legendary Defiant, And when I say Legendary Defiant, I mean it's actually the USS Defiant. There were 10 legendary ships released for the Federation, and each one was based off a named vessel, like the Enterprise D, the Voyager, Kirk's Enterprise, the Defiant, the Discovery, the Odyssey, etc. Although we got like 3 of Kirk's Enterprise. I'm sorry, we got 2 of Kirk's Enterprise and 1 of Pike's Enterprise, instead of, say, getting the Enterprise A or the Enterprise B and C, you know, or the fucking Excelsior. Like, I'd have loved to have gotten the USS Excelsior and the Enterprise C. Then we could have had, rather than 3 different kinds of Constitution class, we could have had a Connie, an Excelsior, and an Ambassador, and just had 10 different kinds of ships, and it would have been awesome. But anyway, the Tier 6 legendary ships have the modules of every single ship in its class. In the Defiant's case, that means it had the Tier 4 Defiant refit, henceforth known as the Sao Paulo, the Tier 5 Defiant retrofit, which is just called the Defiant class, and the Tier 6 Valiant class. So the Tier 1, or the Tier 4 is just a cannon, the Tier 5 is a cloaking device, the Tier 6 is a photon torpedo warhead that basically charges up to 6 torpedoes that it fires simultaneously at a single target. And when you have all of them together, you activate the equipment bonus, which turns your cloak into a battle cloak. And a battle cloak basically says, I don't care if I'm in red alert, I'm cloaking because my cooldown is over. Well, I decided that what I was going to do is I'm going to cloak as the Defiant. I'll ignore the synth, go beam someone up, and then cloak when I can. I'll beam them up, it'll decloak me, and then I'll recloak. Well, it turns out, doing the beam ups or the beam downs, if you're putting them on a transport, doesn't decloak you. So what I do, and for some reason it doesn't, but for some reason when you're in a normal cloak ship, like I tried this with the Princess, which also has a cloak, but just a normal cloak, every time I took damage, which was rare, usually something would blow up next to me, that would decloak me and slow me down. But so what I'll do is, for those first 3 segments before, the final defense, I'll just stay cloaked the whole match, running around at full speed and picking up people, Which, by the way, doesn't work very well with a Romulan scimitar. I tried it, it's garbage. That thing is a boat and it takes forever to stop. So, do it with an escort or a bird of prey or something like that. Something that maneuvers well and stops quickly. The Defiant can stop on a dime. The Scimitar can stop on a city street. You know what I mean? It can stop on a runway. So yeah, I've gamed the system that way. It's pretty cool. I could just do that. Also, I'm like level 15 or so on my my Let's Play of it. So pretty soon I'll be tiering up to the next tier where I get my Akira class, which I bought a thing. The other thing, there was 2 more things. I got so caught up in the describing that mission that I forgot. I covered the upgrade thing. I covered the event. Okay. The next one, and this one isn't implemented yet, but it's coming out in the next patch, apparently. And I don't like this one. But apparently, if you are a Klingon, meaning if you have a Klingon character, that you have gotten to level 65... and it has to be a Klingon character. I don't mean Klingon race, I mean Klingon faction. Not Romulan that becomes Klingon, or Dominion that becomes Klingon. Klingon character at the start, Klingon character at the end. If you do this, you will get a thing, I think it's called Loyalty to the Empire, that will allow you, for your entire account, for every faction, to use ships regardless of your faction. And there are already several ships that do this, like the Princess, or not Princess, the Kittimer is one of them, but you had to have unlocked it, because it's a Klingon Federation Alliance ship, so they both have it. Stuff like the the Temporal ships and all that are cross-class. And because of a glitch, because of an error in the coding, the Titan, the USS Titan, the Titan-class science destroyer, or whatever the fuck they called it, is also available to Klingons because they originally released it and coded it wrong so that you could claim it as a Klingon, and rather than take it away from people on Klingons who bought it, because they could, they just said, okay, we're working into the storyline that they stole a prototype in the Federation at the risk of, or in an effort to not start a war with their new allies, to not reignite the war. They basically said, okay, we're just going to give you a handful of Titans. You know, and that's the in-story explanation for why the Klingons can have the Titan. But yeah, now it's going to be like, oh, the Federation can fly Klingon ships, and the Klingon can fly Federation ships. And I already didn't like the fact that the Romulans and the Dominion could do this, because they could. Because from the start, from the very first time the Romulans went online as a playable faction, you would complete their initial story arc, which is like 5 episodes. And then you would pledge to a faction, either Federation or Klingon. And for the rest of the game, you had the option of either flying warbirds or flying that faction ships instead. Or doing what I do and switching back and forth. And I always thought that was a really shitty thing, because the whole point of being the Romulans is to be the Romulans. I don't want to be a pointy-eared Klingon. You know, that's not the fucking point. And I, for ages, was wanting a Romulan lockbox with the hopes of getting a warbird. You know, the Dideridex Romulan warbird. That is the classic. And honestly, I don't know any Romulan player that wouldn't fly a fucking warbird, because why would you fly a Federation ship or a Klingon ship as a Romulan when you could just make a Federation or Klingon character? And then the Dominion came out, and I'm thinking, oh, cool, the Dominion. We're going to have the Jem'Hadar, we're going to have the Vorta, we might have the Cardassians and the Breen, but no, it's like, okay, you could be a Jem'Hadar or a Jem'Hadar Vanguard. And you start at level 60 in the what at the time was the final story arc of the game, and then after your first mission, you pledge to either the Federations or the Klingons, so they don't get their own fucking story. There's literally like 2 episodes of original content for them. They don't get their own real faction. They don't get their own original story. They get their own ships, but only if you pay a goddamn fortune for them, because they were in... I don't think you could buy them individually. I think you had to buy the bundle, which I did, which was like $100 or something like that. So, I mean, you couldn't even do that. They just... It's like, okay, I'm going to be a Jem'Hadar, and I'm either going to fly this shitty but a decently equipped fighter, or I'm going to fly a Klingon ship or a Federation ship. Which, that... Yeah. And then they had a thing for the Dominion, because the Dominion... Only the Dominion could fly Dominion ships. Until they made a thing like, hey, if you can get your ship to tier 5 in its mastery, then everyone on your account can fly that ship. And I'm like, god damn it. And then an update last year said, hey, everyone can fly Romulan warbirds now. So what the fuck do the Romulans get of their own, you know? And now they're turning around and saying, yeah, once you do this with the Klingon, you can fly whatever ship you fucking want. And I just... At that point, why even have factions anymore? Why even have a Federation faction or a Klingon faction if you're just going to make them the same goddamn thing? You know? I mean... Especially since you can already play a Klingon or a Trill or a Talaxian or Cardassian. Basically, almost any of the premium races can be played by any race. Or at least can be played by the Federation and Klingons. Like, the Cation is Federation-specific, the Pharassan is Klingon-specific, but other than that, if you buy a special race, they can both do it. The sole exception being the Riemann and... Well, no, because the Liberated Borg, which is a lifetime thing, you don't buy it. Same with the Talaxian, actually. But once you have it, you know, once you have the Liberated Borg, it's per species. Like, you get the human one, the Klingon one, and the Romulan one. Or the Riemann one, rather. Or maybe it is Romulan. Either way, you get the idea. And, yeah. So I don't like that they're basically dulling down the factions. I mean, I personally think that the original idea to have the factions in the first place was really fucking stupid. But that's the way they went with it. And now, I don't fucking know. But that brings us to the last thing, and this was apparently supposed to go online yesterday. It did not, but sometimes console takes a little bit to get it. And maybe console won't get it, but I'm pretty sure they will. Allegedly, they're going to give, as part of like their 8th or 9th year anniversary thing, they're going to give a token to every player that allows them to redeem one Tier 5 ship of their choice. And my question is, does it work on the bundles? Because there are Tier 5 bundles as well that are in the Tier 5 block. And if it does, I know what I'm getting. I'm going to get the Bortosk, or whatever it's called, the Klingon flagship cruiser. Because I don't have it. It's just that simple. And if you can't get the bundles, that means no Bortosk, no Vesta, etc. I'm just going to peek around, look, see what I like. I might find something. I might not, I don't know. Because the problem is I have most of the Tier 5 and Tier 6 shit that I really want. Because I got that, with my original stimulus and my tax returns and a couple other times when I came into money. And, which reminds me, I might soon be back in some money once these unemployment checks start coming in, because, if the amendment or whatever passes, then I'm going to see a big increase in that. But anyway, that brings Star Trek to an end. Before I get into the next game in the list, I'm going to go on this other topic, because it deserves to be mentioned, and I want to mention it while I still have time. My aunt's cat, Patches, recently died. He had health problems. He was really overweight, and he was just having heart trouble and difficulty breathing. And the other day she put him down, and I deduced this because she called me asking what kind of cat food my cats eat. And she's like, oh, we have these 2 bags. And at first I figured, well, maybe Patches is on a special diet now and can't eat them, or maybe he just doesn't like them and they lost the receipt or something like that. There's numerous reasons that a person with a cat would give away cat food. I've done it. I've done it with dog food. I've done it with Maya's Kibbles and Bits with one of my friends, because she wouldn't eat the bits, or she'd only eat the bits, she wouldn't eat the kibble. So I just like, here's a whole bag of this, plus a bag of the kibble she wouldn't eat, because I know your dogs are vacuum cleaners. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. There are numerous reasons for that. It's when she offered to give away his litter that I'm like, did something happen to Patches? She's like, yeah, he got put down. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, because the thing is, Patches is an interesting cat, because my aunt has been allergic to cats forever. There was this weird set of circumstances that ended up with her getting an orange and white cat that she called Patches. And Patches is a really good cat. He really liked her. She liked him. He was very friendly. He bit like a motherfucker, though. He was one of those cats where if he decided to bite you, if he got teeth in, he would apply pressure until you pried his jaws off you. He was one of those biters. But he was a good boy. And Patches ran away from home, and they never found him. Well, she went out to the SPCA, got a new cat that looked similar that she also named Patches. And for years I wouldn't even call him Patches, because I don't like the idea of giving your pet's name to another pet. I mean, yes, I'm fully on board with her getting a new cat when hers ran away, and they tried for months or so to look for his ass. But to give him the same name as the previous pet in an obvious attempt to replace him strikes me as intensely disrespectful. So I just whatever. But the cat himself, I loved him. He was a good boy. I am a cat person. If you ever meet me in person and I come over to your house and you have a cat, you have lost my attention. Period. Until I get that kitty cat, I'm only going to listen to half of what you say. Unless it pertains to the cat. I'm one of those people. So I'd go over to their house and I'd call Patches and he'd let me pet him and hold him and snuggle him. And if I came over, he would come out and find me for snuggles and shit. So I loved that cat. He was a good boy. And I will miss him. And I wish that I'd seen him recently. But there is good news in this tragedy, which is that my aunt has 2 3-pound bags of Meow Mix that aren't opened that she's willing to give me, which is good because right now the girls are running low on food. They're not out, but they're running low. And without that unemployment check, I have no way to replace it, and that will hold me until the check comes at the very least. So, you know, even in a bad situation, there is a silver lining. So let's move on to the last thing. Dead by Daylight. I had been playing a lot of Dead by Daylight, just in general. Got a couple Survivor games under my belt. I sucked at them. I sucked horribly. In every case, I was the first person eliminated. It's partly because I don't have any practice, because it can take up to 20 minutes for me to get a game as a survivor, and partly because any blood points I earn, I put on Freddy, which is my mate. Freddy being a killer. So that means I'm not unlocking new items, because I'm not completing my Survivor's Blood Web, nor am I surviving to the end of the match to carry off items that I found in the level. So I'm not getting any items. My perks aren't getting any stronger, and I'm not opening more perk slots. So basically, I'm severely handicapped, and I don't know what I'm doing. One or the other, dude, you know what I mean? Like, I could take Freddy's perks and add-ons off of him and still do moderately well. I could probably get 2, maybe 3 people. You know, if I do particularly hot, I could get a 4K. It's not super likely. I do kind of need my perks, but I can do it. Whereas a survivor, no. And the only reason I can do that as a killer is because that's what I play. I specialize as a killer, specifically Freddy. Earlier today, I actually did a match like an hour ago. Matter of fact, that call I got from the senator's or the representative's office happened on the end screen of Dead by Daylight when I was looking at my score for this match. I ran into a survivor going by Rose Bundy, who I'd actually played with earlier that day as a survivor, or previous day rather. And she was the sole survivor of our game. I was the first one out, obviously. No, I was the second one out because someone disconnected before I died. And then, in between me looking at my score and then realizing I could spectate, the other person died, leaving just Rose alive. And she was able to limp her way all the way to the gate, which was necessary because the guy playing the Wraith had closed the hatch on her ass. Hit the gate and leave. She stayed long enough to see the killer, but didn't, like, teabag or taunt or anything like that. She just went out the gate. You know, I don't know, maybe that's some weird survivor etiquette that they want the killer to at least see them. But anyway, so I go into this match recognizing that name and thinking, oh god, I got to take her down. But I played well. I got all 4. You know, I didn't go after anyone in particular. Basically, I would hook someone, they'd get off the hook, I'd hook someone else, find the first person, hook them, etc. You know. One point, an injured person, she wasn't injured when she got to the, or she wasn't injured when she went to the hook. She was injured by the time she got there, though. Got someone that I had hooked. And I timed it, knowing how the iframes work, so that when she got her down, one of them was going to get hit, and it just so happened it was the new girl. So her ass went up on the hook. You know, and basically, I managed to whittle him down bit by bit. I got, you know, 10 hooks that game. For the record, the max you can get is 12, because each person has 3 hooks, but that requires you to hook every person twice before you kill the second to last person, because when 3 people are dead, you hook that last person, whether they're on hook 1, 2, or 3, they're going to die. So anyway, I managed to not hook Rose at all that game until that point. I got the 3 of them down. I'm like, I have not seen Rose since like 5 minutes into the game when she got a survivor down. And that worried me because I know she's crafty, because I saw her do it. So, earlier I had passed by one of the gates and booby-trapped it, because Freddy can lay these snares down that basically alert him when someone crosses them while they're asleep. And I happened to notice she was asleep, and I figured there's no way she's going to take the time to find an alarm clock and wake her ass up. Just no point to it. So I booby-trapped one of the doors, walked to the other one. At first I thought there's no way I'm not gonna that she's not going to do this, and then I realize how close the doors were. It's like a 10-second walk between them. Like, she could not possibly open the door before I could get to her. And then I massively booby-trap the other door, and as I'm walking to the first door, she trips the snare. I chase her a little bit. Game. So, I even sent her a message saying, hey, you were my main threat. I thought for sure you were going to get me. You know. No reply, but I do like giving people good feedback when I can. So Freddy's almost to level 50. I think he's like level 43 right now. 50 being when they max out, and I could choose to either prestige them or just keep gaining, let's call them free levels, where I can just fill out the blood web but not gain any levels for it. That's how you get new perks and new items and shit. And yeah, I'm just max out Freddy's my main goal, then max out Myers, then pick a survivor, starting with Nia, and then just kind of go from there. I actually had a good Michael Myers game, a really good Michael Myers game. Kind of fucked up though. I didn't have his usual item that I use, which is Boyfriend's Note, which increases my lunge range in Tier 1, which I never leave Tier 1. But I did have an item called the Scratch Mirror, which allows me to stay in Tier 1 forever and stalk through walls, which helped me a lot, basically helped me spot everyone. So I didn't have my my increased lunge range, and between not having that on Myers and being used to Freddy's tremendously long lunge range, I whiffed so many hits. But I managed to get everybody. I managed to 4K him. It's always that fourth one that's tricky, because even if you have a perfect game with the first three, if you don't find the hatch before they do, it's their ass. Or it's your ass, rather. But I've gotten really good at finding the hatch. It helps that I wear headphones, so I can hear the hatch, which is a major part of finding it. And so yeah, I had a good run as Michael Myers. I did level up one thing, which was I got his Sloppy Butcher Tier 3. And then the rest of the points went to Freddy, because Freddy's my main right now. I'm maining him, I'm trying to get him as high up as I can, etc. Then I'll work on Michael Myers, and then I'll just kind of go from there. When the unemployment check comes in and my bills are taken care of and I have some free spending money, I intend to get a couple other of the killers. Spirit kind of caught my attention, Ghostface caught my attention, and Plague caught my attention. Those just seem like things that I would want to play as. Seem like a lot of fun. And there are a couple others that I want skills from, like I want skills from the Clown, I want skills from... I don't remember who else, but there was other people I wanted skills from. So, but yeah, I want to make a couple small purchases, but only when my bills are taken care of, because I'm 150 in the hole right now. Roommate's real understanding about the 100 I owe him. My friend's very understanding about the 50 I owe him. So, because if nothing else, the roommate knows there's another stimulus coming, and then I can cover whatever I owe out of that. So we'll see how this fares. Shortly, I'm going to look up that list of representatives again, send out the next email, and we'll see where this goes. So wish me luck on that. By the time this goes up, I'll have sent the messages. Probably. I'm a known procrastinator. We'll see how this goes. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful with how quickly Chris responded to me, like basically the same day. Because I sent that at like maybe 8 o'clock at night, and I got an answer at 9:30 in the morning. That's not even 24 hours. I got a response. So I'm hoping the others will be similarly responsive. I'm sure they're swamped though, because there's a lot of Floridians trying to get on unemployment, and it's just kind of a clusterfuck right now. But I'm hoping. I mean, the situation wouldn't be what it is if it weren't already a clusterfuck. I'm gonna actually dip in here real quick, see if I can find anything out. I'm probably not gonna have the time to do it in the video, mind you, but I'm gonna check, because you never know. It could have already passed. It could have gone from pending to dealt with. You know, like, hey, your check's in the mail, boy. You know, I could have my money on the way. And all of this will be for nothing, which is fine. I'm fine as long as the money comes in. There we go, reemployment assistance. So anyway, that's me. I'll see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.